Naomi and the Wildflowers. The free life of a student was over, and Naomi found herself immersed in the life of a working woman. The young woman liked everything in her new life, except that she had no personal life. Relationships with boyfriends at the college did not work out. A couple of fleeting romances ended up going nowhere. Her friends consoled Naomi with speculation that her life partner was waiting for her somewhere in the future. Indeed, there will be a man deserving of Naomi who meets her high expectations. But she lived here and now, and watching her friends get married one after another was unbearable. So after getting her first job, Naomi rented a small apartment in a part of town where she could walk to work. One early morning, Naomi came out of her driveway for a morning jog around the block. Opening the door of her apartment, which opened directly onto a small staircase leading to the street sidewalk, Naomi stopped. Then, looking puzzled at the object lying on the threshold by her door, she hesitantly picked it up. In the girl's hands was a luxurious bouquet of wildflowers. Naomi twirled the bouquet, looking for whom it was intended. But there was no note or notation about the recipient of the bouquet. The girl could not understand why it was wildflowers. Probably someone mixed up the address or just threw the bouquet here, having forgotten it. But Naomi, who since childhood loved to visit her grandmother, who lived on a farm and constantly collected wildflowers to decorate vases in the house, decided not to leave the bouquet on the street. She took it into the house. The girl carefully unwrapped the newspaper in which the bouquet was wrapped and, pouring water into a vase, put it on the kitchen table. Then, she looked outside from her kitchen window, checked that she had all her keys and cell phone, and went for a run again. When Naomi returned home after her run, she was pleased to see that the flowers in the bouquet, which had been wilted, had straightened their heads and proudly straightened their stems. Naomi knew wildflowers did not stay cut in water for long, so she enjoyed seeing them for at least a few days before their petals fell off. Somehow very satisfied, Naomi went to work and spent the day in high spirits. A week later, a bouquet of wildflowers was on her doorstep again. Naomi looked at the bouquet at a loss, and her heart fluttered in her chest. It was a foreboding of something good, something unusual in her life, something she had long been prepared for. When the bouquet appeared at her door for the third time, she found out who her secret admirer was. She was prepared for the possibility that it might be someone from her coworkers. After all, she had long ago stopped maintaining relationships with guys from her school and the institute. Naomi was looking for something new and put the past behind her. When Wednesday morning came, in which a bouquet of wildflowers usually appeared at her door, Naomi could not sleep. Her whole being was waiting for when she would catch a stranger at her door. Naomi imagined not a romantic encounter with a handsome man but a meeting with some scruffy guy afraid to meet her gaze somewhere at work. They had some strange types in the office with whom Naomi had no desire to have any relationship outside of work hours. The girl could not imagine who else would secretly bring her flowers and be her secret admirer, eager to keep his identity a secret. Naomi tossed and turned all night and hardly slept. Then, finally, the alarm clock woke her at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was the perfect time for someone to show up unseen. When the alarm clock rang, She got out of bed and tiptoed to the front door of her apartment in her pajamas. She peered through the peephole of the front door and froze in anticipation. No one. Nothing. Only a garbage truck pulled up to her house, and a guy in work clothes busied himself with her trash cans, deftly sending them into the jaws of his car. Then he treated the area where her trash can stood with a decontaminating liquid and returned to his car. Nothing interesting. Naomi was tired from standing bent at the peephole, and her feet were already cold on the chilly hallway floor. She returned to bed and got a couple more hours before the alarm clock rang again. Naomi got ready to run, and when she opened the front door, she stumbled upon a bouquet of wildflowers. She picked it up, twirled it in her hands, and suddenly realized that besides the smell of wildflowers, there was another fragrance she had noticed before. Naomi held the bouquet up to her nose and sniffed. The newspaper the bouquet was wrapped in smelled like the same scented liquid that the garbage man had used a couple of hours ago to treat the area of her garbage cans. Naomi was at a complete loss. What did it mean? Who is he, the guy who brings her flowers, wanting to remain unrecognized? But why is he bringing her flowers? The girl spent the whole day brooding. The bouquet of wildflowers in a vase on her desk reminded her she had never realized who was interested in her. The trash car driver did not fit the image of an admirer in her mind. Naomi rejected the proposals of many attractive and promising guys in their careers. Naomi wanted something else, that she and her chosen one had something in common other than what is usually required for the family. Naomi wanted her chosen one to understand her, and that was difficult. The girl was a perfect introvert and could not spend time in noisy groups of peers or in hobby clubs. Instead, Naomi spent all her free time reading books. When the workday was over, Naomi decided. Next Wednesday, she would go out to that garbage man and demand an explanation. She had to stop something that would never work. She could not be won over by the best handsome men and future lawyers from her class at the institute. What would this poor garbage man do next to her? We have to stop this game before it goes too far, and the guy would be awkward. Naomi would only meet guys in her circle. After all, even her fellow students could not make a good enough impression on someone as sophisticated as Naomi. The following Wednesday morning came. Naomi waited for the garbage truck to arrive, no longer looking through the door's peephole. She just sat in a chair by the door, fully dressed. She had to go out and explain herself to the guy who had unrealistic hopes for a romantic relationship with her. She heard a truck engine approaching. The girl took a deep breath and opened the door. Standing on her doorstep was a short, stocky guy dressed in work clothes covered in something dark. He smelled like that disinfectant liquid. He was holding a bouquet of wildflowers. The young people's eyes met. Naomi could utter nothing. She had prepared for this moment to draw the boy away from her. The girl simply reached out and took the bouquet from his hands. She smiled and said, "Well, now we've met. My name is Naomi. And you?" The guy exhaled briefly and answered, looking her in the eye. "And my name is Serge. And I work here." He waved at his truck, whose engine was on. The car was waiting to continue its journey, but its driver could not take his admiring gaze off Naomi. The girl continued. "It's a pleasure. Well, see you next time. Thanks for the flowers. I like them so much." The guy smiled, and Naomi noticed his sincere smile pleased her. She continued. "I hope we don't just see each other like this here, at 4 in the morning. Let's meet somewhere in a cafe and talk." Serge nodded in agreement, clearly unable to get a word out of surprise. He rummaged in his pocket and handed Naomi a business card with a phone number and the name of the company he worked for. Naomi took the card from his hand, and their hands touched momentarily. Naomi was embarrassed, and so was the guy. There was already something between them, that bouquet of wildflowers and the modesty of this guy, who in ordinary life would never have attracted her attention. Naomi smiled approvingly at Serge and said goodbye. He waved his hand back in a farewell gesture, but his face was radiant with a smile, and his eyes radiated delight. Naomi closed the door, stood with the bouquet in her hands in the hallway for a moment, wondering what she had just done, and then resolutely headed into the kitchen and put the bouquet in a vase of water. Whatever happens, now she has this guy's phone number, and she will meet with him once to explain herself and convince him they have nothing in common and cannot have anything in common. Naomi thought about when to call this guy and what she would say at their meeting. After deciding what she would do, Naomi chose not to call but simply sent him a text offering to meet him at a coffee shop outside her house at 6 o'clock in the evening. "I should put nothing off. I have to finish it as soon as possible." As Naomi read his response, she felt relieved that he agreed to meet at the time and place she suggested. At the appointed time, Naomi was at the cafe. She sat down at an empty table and ordered green tea. She didn't know what her new acquaintance Serge would drink or eating, so she ordered in advance just for herself. When the stocky figure of Serge, who was already familiar to her, appeared on the threshold of the cafe, Naomi suddenly felt that despite all her willingness to explain to her coldly that they were not a couple, they could not and could have nothing in common that had disappeared. The girl looked with a smile at the guy who was walking toward her. He had one rose in his hands, but it was worth hundreds of bouquets of roses. With such admiration, Serge looked at Naomi. The couple talked for about 3 hours. They could not tear themselves away from getting to know each other. Yes, they were so different, from social circles, with a vast difference in education. But Serge's innate intelligence immediately won Naomi over, and the girl continued to talk to him. She asked him about everything, how he got into this job and what his family and circle of friends were like. When Naomi heard he lived on the block next door to her house, she wondered. But how is that possible? It's so expensive to rent in our neighborhood. Serge answered calmly. But I work. I have my business and this truck is mine, and many others. Naomi looked at the guy in surprise. So you're a businessman. So why do you? Working on my garbage truck, he continued her sentence. Well, just because that's how I started my business and I see no reason to sit in an office. And that way I understand better the needs of both my business and the people who work for me. Naomi could not get over her surprise. She realized she had belittled the intelligence of this plain-looking guy beforehand, and now she was ashamed of such prejudice against his profession. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I don't know anything about working professions at all. All my folks with college degrees, and that was one way for me to go. I am so limited in my life experience." Naomi even blushed at what she thought of this working man's intelligence. He has his own business, which requires hard work but a certain intelligence and persistence in achieving goals. All you need from a man who would like her. Naomi reached out and dabbed Serge's hand, apologizing for her unspoken prejudices against him. He understood perfectly from the look on her face and the tone of her voice. Serge covered her hand with his palm, touching Naomi as if she were the most precious and fragile creature he could imagine. He uttered, looking the girl in the eyes. "Don't worry, I know what you can think of me. That's why I brought flowers, not even hoping for a chance to just talk to you. I noticed you long ago when you were running in the park in the morning, and I was already coming home from the night shift. So I'm sorry, just like that, just watching you, I really like you." Naomi realized he meant to say something slightly different instead of like, but he chose another word. And that made her realize, once again, that she should get to know her new acquaintance better. Not expecting herself to do what she did a second later, Naomi uttered, "Me, too, I mean, I like you, too. Otherwise, I would never have agreed to meet you even to tell me that nothing can happen between us." Serge continued her thought with a sly expression. "Yes, you're right, but maybe we should just try to get to know each other better, and then you're free of any obligation to keep getting to know me." Naomi looked at Serge testingly. He told her what they should do next with this whole situation. It was not her, and he told her how he felt about her. It was not her, but him giving her a choice. Naomi, without taking her gaze off Serge's eyes, quietly replied, "I agree. We just need to get to know each other and then everything will fall into place." "Where do we start?" the girl said in a more cheerful tone, staring expectantly at her admirer. "Well, let's go to a concert at a club, like this Friday. Then I'll have some free time, and we can spend it together." Because Serge took the time to be alone with her or to drag her to a place with a lot of alcohol to break her inner resistance, which, however, was no longer there, Naomi sensed the promise of something worthwhile, something that was to her liking. The girl gave Serge a cheerful nod and replied, "Well, let's meet again. Now, are you going to have something to drink or eat? We can just chat and now." Serge grinned at her, answering, "Yes, I think I'll get something to eat, because I just woke up and I need a good meal before my night shift." Naomi felt very comfortable that she wanted to be right there with him, this man who was about to go to his hard work. There was something normal about a woman being around a real man who would complete her, not replicate her idealized idea of the perfect life partner. Naomi leaned relaxed back in her chair and, in a voice that was chesty and somehow unusually gentle, whispered, "Sure, take whatever you want, and I'll just be beside you." The end. Written by Misha Quinn, May 2023.